Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we are going to start a new series which is the Salesforce interview series, and here we are going to discuss some of the most frequently asked topics and the related questions from those topics. So the first topic is the securities in Salesforce. So securities in Salesforce is a very tricky topic, okay? Because even if we are able to answer all the questions related to securities, it might not guarantee us a selection. However, at the same time, if we are not able to answer the questions related to securities, it might not give a very good impression about us as a candidate. So let's begin. So basically, the securities in Salesforce can be divided into four parts, okay, which is organization level security, object level, field level, and the record level. Now we are going to dive deep into each of these. So many times we as a candidate, whenever we are asked that explain the securities in Salesforce, we just go at a very high level. So it is very important to make sure that we are explaining these topics in a detailed manner so that the interviewer gets an impression that yes, this particular candidate is aware of all the technicalities of securities in Salesforce because it is a very critical part. Okay. Then if we talk about the organization level security, so the first thing that comes to our mind is the password policies, the login IP ranges, the login hours. So what it does is the password policies when we want the user's password to expire and when they need to reset it forcefully from our side, the login hours, like when at what duration the user can log in, the IP ranges, like from a, if there is anything we want to control, say only this particular IP range can log in. So these things comes under the organization level security. Then we have the field level security. So we already know that field level security is something which controls the fields related to a particular object, and it can be controlled using profiles and permission set. Okay, so it is very helpful when we want a particular user to have access to only certain fields. So the next topic is the object level security. So basically this object level security, it controls which objects a user can access and what operations they can perform. So again, the profiles and the permission sets, these combined together to provide access to the object to a particular user. Okay, the permissions that comes under this the object level security is like the read, create, edit, delete, view all, and modify all. Okay, so for example, if a particular user have read access to a record, okay, then he or she, basically the user, will be able to will be able to view those records. Similarly, the create, edit, delete. But if they have view all and modify all for a particular object, then they can see all the records that are uh, under this object. Okay, then the most important and the critical one is the record level security. So many times what candidates does is they will simply go to the record level security and then they will tell something like okay, record level security, but no, this is where mostly the interviewers are very much interested. Okay, say organization wide default, what is OWD? Okay, so as we know, this is the baseline level of security. Okay, there are multiple types of OWD we have. Say we have private, okay, we have public read only, we have public read write, we have public read write transfer, and then we have controlled by parent. We already know that the if the OWD is private for a particular object, that it means only the owner of that record can see or edit that record. Okay, until unless it is not explicitly shared with any other user, right? And we'll come back to the role hierarchy and all later. Then we have this public read only, that only the owner can have the access to that particular record, and the rest of those users will have read permissions only.
So be mindful when we are discussing the OWD, we are only considering the fact that the by default what the users get. We are not concerned about the sharing rules and the role hierarchy as of now. Okay. Now the public read write. When the OWD of a particular object is public read write, it means that the user as well as the other users in the org, whoever have the access to that particular object from their profile or permission set, will also be able to perform the read and write activities, given the fact that rest all permissions are intact.
Okay, then we have public read write transfer. This is again a very good one for case and leads. Okay, and then we have the control by parent, which comes into the action when the relationship between the objects are in master detail. Okay, then we have the role hierarchy. So what happens is the managers or the users higher in the hierarchy will be able to access the record. Okay, so what happens is okay, this will come into the picture only when the grant access using hierarchy checkbox is checked in the OWD. Okay, when we go there, we have on the right hand side, we have this grant access using hierarchy checkbox. Only if that is checked, then only it will come into the picture. Then we have the sharing rules. Okay, so basically sharing rules are used to extend the access that a particular user have. Say for example, I am the owner of the particular record and I wish to share my record with a certain users. So we can go with using we can use the sharing rules. Again, sharing rules are of two types. Okay, basically one is owner based sharing and then the criteria based sharing rules. So owner-based sharing rules, so this shares the record based on the owner of the record. Okay. For example, the record owned by a separate user, okay, a role or a public group can be shared when teams are at the same level. Okay. And then what happens is we can share the record of a particular user, okay, particular of a role. Say I have XYZ role and I wish to share all the records owned by this XYZ role user to another. So we go with the owner based sharing rules. Then we have this criteria based sharing rules. Okay, these are used to share the record based on the field value on the record itself. Say for example, the if the account status is active, then we want to share the record with some users. Okay, and this cannot be, it is very important to keep in mind that this criteria based sharing rules and owner based sharing rules, okay, this records cannot be shared with any individual user. Okay, but we can share it with a public group or roles. Okay, so it is very important to keep that in mind. Again, there are some consideration, okay, for the sharing rules. We need to keep in mind which records to share. Okay, so simply we can't share all the records. So then, with whom the record needs to be shared? Okay, we need to have a clear idea on whom we are sharing the record with, and then also what kind of access is we need to provide. Okay, then the next one is the manual sharing. Okay, so what happens is many times even while I take interview, this is a very common question that when we can share a record manually. Okay, so many a times the users are like we can share all the records with anyone we want using the manual sharing. No, that is not true. Okay, that is not true. What happens is it is not possible. Basically, when it is not possible to define a con particular set of user or group of user who we want to share the record with. Okay, and it is not possible to share the record with any of the above discussed method. Okay, so only those records whose OWD is private or public read only can be shared using the manual sharing. Okay, so it is very important to keep that in mind. Then we have the teams. For objects like accounts, opportunities, and cases, we have the say account teams, opportunity team, and case team. Okay, and if we add a particular user as an account team member or opportunity team member, they get the access to that particular record. Okay, then also we have apex sharing rules. So basically it is a programmatic way of sharing record when a declarative method like say owner based sharing or criteria based sharing rules cannot handle the requirement. Okay, so in that case we go with the apex sharing. Say for example, if we need to share a certain record of a manager, okay, with their subordinates, okay, and we might not have a like, of course, in that scenario, we can go ahead with the apex sharing rules. Then we have the territory management. Okay, so this is also a very good topic for the securities. So what happens is we create a territory, okay, and then based on certain criteria, we add a set of say account or opportunities or cases to that particular territory, and we also add certain users to that territory. After that, those users will get the access to those records which are part of that territory. Okay, so this is how the territory management works. Okay, so I think I'm good from my side. Thank you. And in case if there are any concerns or questions, please drop any message to me. I'll be more than happy to try answer those. And in the next scenario, next like maybe in the day two, we will try to cover some examples of what we have discussed. Okay, so thank you and have a nice day.